you empower what you resist. And this is me pumping the brakes by resisting a bit. I just want to get caught up on a couple things that have been going on. Even though I've not been paying attention as much as I used to, it crosses me, or it crosses my attention, and I keep track. I follow. I track. But before we get started on that, look at my girl. She's such a good girl. She's a rescue. She's 15 years old. Spottie. She used to. I lived in a place outside the city, and there was a house back in the woods, and I never really went back there. But she used to run away from there and come visit me when I was outside with hiccups. I had a Jack Russell. She passed away when she was 18, but at that time she was a little bit younger. And she would run away and come interact with us and play, but then when I invited her inside with us, she would run into the woods, and I was like, that's so weird. But she would do that like once, twice a week, and eventually she started staying with us for days at a time, then eventually weeks at a time. But this family started showing up and saying, hey, that's our dog. And then they'd pick her up and bring her home, and it was the same process every week. She'd run away from them, come to us, stay with us. Then this family would come and pick her up randomly. And one day I just walked the trail to their house, and I saw Spottie outside. And they were holding her by her arms, like where she's hanging like this. And for a dog, I mean, that'll pop their shoulders out of joint. And I walked up and I was like, hey, you know, can I talk to your parents? And they came out and they were telling me how Spot loves drinking Coca-Cola, and you know, they would give her coffee, Coca-Cola, they would give her all this shit. And I was just like, hey man, I'll level with you. How much? Like, just name a price, because she wants to be with me. I like her. Like, name a price. And they did. And Spot's been with me since. She's been a good girl. She took a secondary role while I was with my older dog, Hiccups. And then when Hiccups passed in like 2021, I think, Spot just picked up, and she's gotten all the attention since. Until Taco. Love you, guy. Oh, here he comes. Oh, here he comes. Where's he at? There he is. Hey, buddy. Did Daddy mess with you while you were snoozing? I call him Scrappy Doo. He was with a woman who had just gotten released from prison after like 5 years in prison, something like that. She was dating a meth head, and he kept running out. I was staying in a motel, and he kept running away, and he'd always come to our door because Spottie you know, I'd take her out and go in, and he'd always come to our door because he'd smell Spot. And same thing. What's up, Scrappy? So current events. I think the biggest thing is that the Epstein files are missing timestamps between 1999 and 2006. That's the 9/11 files. Howard Lutnick became famous for working in the Twin Towers, and that day, now 9/11, he supposedly had to take his daughter to school. Something came up, and so he wasn't there miraculously. But he started a fund for the 9/11 victims, and he started like pretend crying on camera saying, yeah, we raised, I don't know, $300 million, but when you divide that among all the victims' families, it's only like 30,000 a pop. Well, the fund was directly to be paid to Howard Lutnick's foundation, and Howard Lutnick's foundation was telling the truth when they said only this amount of money is going to them, but there's like $100-something million missing between what went to the victims' families and what was paid out. So you want to money laundering, theft, among probably a dozen other legal terms I don't know. And Howard Lutnick is the one that's in the Epstein files. Oh, after my wife, we were neighbors with Epstein for like 15 years, but after my wife and I met him when he moved in, I was like, gross, I'll never be alone with him. Turns out him and his wife went and had dinner on the island with their kids and all this stuff. All lies, all lies. And Howard Lutnick's out here laughing every time Epstein's mentioned, and Trump's gaslighting America. Howard Lutnick's literally laughing in the background. He just thinks it's the funniest thing when people bring up his neighbor Epstein, who warned him not to go to work on 9/11. Interesting. Interesting. And who did Epstein work for? Interesting. Israel. Interesting. Dancing Israelis. Put that in your YouTube search engine. Interesting. Interesting. And it isn't just the Israelis dancing, it's those dancing Israelis being interviewed when they got back to Israel saying, well, we knew the event was going to happen, so we were there to film it, and Americans should know what Israelis have to go through every day under the threat of terrorism. Interesting. Interesting. Notice I'm not saying allegedly, like a lot of YouTubers do, so they don't get demonetized. I'll never be monetized, so I don't give a fuck. But also, it's not allegedly. It's interesting because it's in the files. He testified before Congress. It's fact. This is fact. This is not conspiracy, it's fact. Interesting. Pam Bondi. When I was a kid, I liked to watch wrestling. That's why the whole Republican Democrat thing doesn't bother me anymore, because I grew up watching wrestling. I know it's all a fucking game. It's all a fucking show. It's all fake. It's kayfabe. But I was watching. I saw an interesting take from Kevin Nash, known as the Diesel once. taking on my boy Bret Hart, threatening his championship run. Kevin Nash was talking about Pam Bondi, and he had some choice words and things, but I did not realize Pam Bondi's 60 years old. In a past video, I said it wouldn't surprise me if Pam Bondi had been groomed at Trump's modeling agency, because she seems fanatically loyal to Trump. Not the Constitution, not America, but Trump. Well, Kevin Nash brought up that she's 60 years old, which surprised me, so I'm going to axe that, because she would have been in her late 20s at the time with a modeling agency, and that wasn't really Trump and Epstein's flavor. But she was. Thank you, Kevin Nash. I'll tag you just because you're fucking cool, and I always tag people I mention. But Kevin Nash also said she was the Attorney General of Tampa at the time that Epstein was being brought up and tried, and apparently the Attorney General of Florida, Acosta, is the one that said, oh, Epstein's untouchable because he's intelligence. But at that time, Pam Bondi was the Attorney General of Tampa. So this circle. And another thing I mentioned in a past video was Tulsi Gabbard, and I said how I don't, in the video Rant, I called it Rant, but if you're looking for it, but I mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, how you pay attention to her past, she's been groomed. Not only did she grow up with the Biden family, friends with the Biden son who died, but like, she grew up with the Biden family, so she's already wealthy and connected. But she was supported by many NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and when she went to school, her schooling, I can't remember if it's the same one that groomed Obama. I can't remember, but she was supported by these NGOs through her education period before the military. Then she's in the military with psychological operations, and then she is on the Council of Foreign Relations. Maybe you've heard that before. But I mean, look into her past, and her family was involved with some cultist. It was a cult. It was like a sex grooming cult, and I can't remember what it was called or what the guy's name was, but Tulsi was involved in it, and her family was involved in this sex grooming cult, kind of a new age sex grooming cult. So when I say that these people are selected for this time, that they are where they should be in this time, I mean what I'm saying to you. And I'll end with this. I don't have a lot of experience in counterintelligence. I only worked privately for a think tank that got their contracts from the intelligence community for about a little under 2 years before I realized the bureaucracy, I realized the futility of my work with this group of people. And I cussed out a retired senior NSA analyst, and they tried to put me on disciplinary, not suspension because I was still working, but disciplinary, like probation. And I was like, fuck you. I didn't do anything wrong. You know, fuck you. I was your goddamn star that had nothing but top ratings on my products. And you pulled something out of your ass to bring me down for the level of the other analysts that you had. You pulled something out of your ass to bring down my ratings so that the next best person we could average out somehow. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you. So I walked away. Fuck you. Fuck you. And that was the beginning. That wasn't the beginning of my vigilante career, because a few years prior I had started in North Carolina. But I had put it on hold because I realized I was missing skill sets I needed to be operationally efficient. Not just capable, but efficient and functional, because I was working alone. I didn't have a team to help me, so I had to cover all my bases. I had to do everything. But that's when I left and I said, okay, I'm done with the hamster wheel. I'm done with the bureaucracy. I'm done trying to make a career. There is no longer, when you retire after 20 years, you get a gold Rolex and a thank you from the company. No. I realized at that point, I'm wasting my fucking life. And the one thing I've ever wanted to do was serve the American people. And the only way I could do that is by not working with the government, not working with private corporate companies or think tanks, but by working with and for myself, for the American people, but only me, going completely fucking solo, me giving myself the orders, me calling the shots. That was the only way I could ever work for the American people, and I did that selflessly. No income coming from I did that, and let me be transparent, because life is not a comic book, okay? I had to work jobs. I got into relationships. There were other things going on in my life, so it wasn't like every night I'm out prowling the streets and doing this thing. That's not reality. I had to work jobs to make a living. I got in relationships where I questioned, should I be out here doing this crazy shit, or should I be like hunting violent criminals, rapists, serial rapists, murderers, serial murderers? Like, should I be doing this, or should I just enjoy this relationship and put all my time and energy in the relationships? And me being the person I wanted to be, to have a family and children and things like this, a lot of times I would put the vigilante on the back burner for maybe even a year, months to a year, before I picked up a new case, before I had a new product I wanted to work on, a new target that was causing trouble in the community I was in, that I could develop an intelligence product, go into operational phase, develop an intelligence product, submit that to the appropriate law enforcement agency, get them off the street, like do what I was trained to do, or be a good boyfriend, possibly a future husband, possibly a future father. Like, so look, man, life is not a comic book, and when you work alone and you do everything yourself, other than the network of assets you've developed, like, dude, it was off and on for 10 years, close to 15 years, but I say 10 years because that was probably the amount of work that I put in that time period, between the first serial rapist I went after, closely like a year separated, followed by the serial rapist murderer I went after in North Carolina, to the last city that I actually operated in. Because during this time, man, there ain't no vigilante instruction manual. During this time, I'm using my training in the intelligence community, my training in the military, my martial arts training. I'm using everything I've developed in my life to create an efficient map for myself to do these things. So it wasn't perfect, it wasn't quick, it wasn't consistent. It was just off and on as I could. That's the best anybody can do, is the best that they can do. And eventually, as I neared middle age, past injuries are building up and building up and building up. And eventually they caught up to me. And I don't feel guilty about the things I've done in my life anymore. I don't feel that I owe the American people anything. I felt betrayed by the government. I felt like a mercenary for Israel when I worked for the military. I felt like a chump that wasn't paid attention to when I worked involved with the intelligence community, because the bureaucracy of DC always wins. The party line always wins. You know, and I never felt that I served the American people, that I spend time as a vigilante serving the American people. When I got off the hamster wheel. But now I don't feel I owe anyone anything. And I'm improving my health, I'm improving my life. I'm spending time with my dogs. I'm getting healthier. My physical is getting better as far as like my injuries, and I'm getting more involved into the things I did when I was younger, like martial arts. Not for any big comeback, but just to be healthy, just to enjoy my life and the simple things of life. A coffee every now and again, a steak every now and again, good food a couple times a week, you know, just everything in moderation, and just improving myself is where I'm at now. I don't feel I owe anything to anybody, so I'm not interested anymore in any of it. And the more I pull back from the social mind, politics, and all of it, the more peace I have. And I live a simple life, and I may not have all the things other people have or chase after, but I'm not interested in those things. I'm just happy to enjoy the simple things. So, anyway, I guess I'll name this one a rant, because I covered so many different things, but you know, I wanted to pump the brakes a little bit on what's going on in the world by adding some resistance, make them slow down a little bit, like, hey, let's not rush into World War III just yet. Let me resist a little bit. Talk about what matters, like genetic breeding farms, taking the bodies, the dead bodies, the recently deceased bodies of the Epstein victims, and this circle, the Epstein class, as it's being called, organ harvesting, breeding farms, genetic breeding farms, organ harvesting. You gotta understand, Epstein is a human being. Epstein wasn't just, yeah, he was a financial bounty hunter for governments. Yeah, he was an intelligence asset. Yeah, he was a blackmailer. But this was his job. What was his hobby? His hobby was genetic breeding farms. His hobby was organ harvesting and stem cell research. It's good to see you, travelers. Next time.